Climate activism has gotten a bad rap in recent years.
We are in a climate crisis. There is no opera.
Occupying banks and energy companies and blocking roads during the rush hour.
We absolutely apologise to anyone who is personally inconvenienced by our actions. We don't want to be here.
We call on the government to tell the truth and act now on this climate and ecological emergency.
Efforts to portray environmentalists as dangerous, even diabolical, have worked remarkably well.
The level of criticism, both personal attacks, physical attacks, safety attacks.
Physical attacks? On the sidelines of the world's biggest climate summit, we sit with one of the most recognized environmental voices.
We need advocates for the global majority. That's why I'm here.
Why people like her keep warning of climate collapse, even when the odds feel stacked against them. And will the world ever truly listen?
Exxon, Chevron hold the status of persons in the United States. It is very, very difficult to hold them accountable.
Just 2 degrees is on. Now.
May I ask you a deeply personal question?
I don't understand why others don't understand it.
It began with a warning in 1962, when American marine biologist Rachel Carson revealed how humans impact the natural world. In her book, Silent Spring, she wrote about our intoxication with power.
Mankind has gone very far into an artificial world of his own creation. He has sought to insulate himself in his cities of steel and concrete away from the realities of earth, water, the growing seed. And intoxicated with the sense of his own power, he seems to be going farther and farther into experiments toward the destruction of himself and his world.
Her findings on the impact of harmful chemicals on local birds and water resources sparked congressional hearings and led to the creation of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, which aimed to help Americans understand how their actions harm nature.
I want to do something that is not contributing so much to smog. I want to get an electric car, and I want to start recycling and composting.
But Carson's work didn't just help to change policy at home. It inspired environmental consciousness. By 1970, people across the U.S. were taking to the streets, and thousands of students demonstrated at colleges and universities. Climate action then began spreading across the globe, and the 1992 United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was formed, with a mission to tackle the human activities that impacted our climate. Then, in 1997, a diplomatic breakthrough.
We adopt this text. It's so decided.
The Kyoto Protocol delivered the first legally binding cuts for industrialized countries, shaped by years of rising public alarm. But countries were slow to respond, and in the decades that came after, a new generation of activists sought to take matters into their own hands. In 2014, tens of thousands of people filled New York for the People's Climate March, the largest protest of its kind at the time.
We're moving forward with or without them.
The same year, Pacific Islanders blockade the biggest coal port in Australia.
We're trying to change the narrative from we are drowning, but we are not drowning, we are fighting.
And a year later, the Paris Agreement was signed. It demanded every nation play their part to help limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. But a shift in the global mindset didn't stop what was already in motion. Sea levels were rising, polar ice was shrinking, and there were record highs of ocean heat, tropical cyclones, and wildfires. Then a teenager skipped school on a Friday to change the world.
This Swedish schoolgirl has galvanised a generation. Inspired by her weekly climate strikes, millions have now joined her movement.
Greta Thunberg made climate activism cool, with many taking up the mantle to expose the inaction and emissions of governments and private corporations. COP27 in Egypt, that pressure helped deliver something once thought improbable: a global fund to help countries that have financially suffered because of climate disasters. And at COP28 in the United Arab Emirates, negotiators agreed for the first time to transition away from fossil fuels. But Greta and others did not believe that what was promised at these summits would bear fruit.
There have been 28 COPs, and that has not led us anywhere but moving still in the wrong direction.
Greta has subsequently boycotted all COPs since then. Researchers in 2025 say climate action has had a positive impact on the public. More than half of young adults in Germany admit to having changed their diet. And US states with more climate protests report sharper emissions declines. Young people have taken it upon themselves to organize and disrupt. But they also face backlash in places like the United Kingdom, where some have been arrested.
People ask me all the time, do you think it's doing anything? Do you think people are listening? And I say, I don't have a choice in whether or not to ponder that, because what we need to do is act, to do everything we can to send a message to leaders that we don't have any more time left.
Despite the risks, activism helps to reshape public perception and policy. In Europe and North America, 1 in 4 fossil fuel projects targeted by protesters has been delayed or cancelled, according to environmental justice researchers. But much of what we know comes from the global north. Activism in China, India, and across the global south remains vastly understudied. Which brings us to the people carrying this fight forward, young activists confronting a world that tells them change is impossible, yet choosing to act anyway.
So thank you so much for joining us on the program. I know you've done so much over the years in climate justice, law. This is not your first COP, is it? How many have you been to?
I think 6 now.
6. How did you get involved in the climate crisis?
Well, I lost a number of family members when I was quite young. I was a teenager. I lost cousins, I lost grandparents. My uncles developed kidney disease, and this is the reality for so many people in Pakistan. It's pollution mixed with climate crisis. And so also I come from a region that was heavily affected by the war on terror, and that the geopolitics with the resource issue that is at the heart of the climate crisis. It's an oil and gas issue. Really politicized me quite at an early age. I started engaging in protests in New York City. Me and my colleagues were able to get 300,000 young people out into the streets of New York. And I used to sit in front of the UNHQ with a placard in my hand that said, "Take climate justice seriously." And I did that for 35 weeks until I was actually invited by the Secretary General to advise him on climate change.
Yeah, years ago, there was such like a youth momentum behind climate action. People were out in the streets in the hundreds of thousands. You said you got 300,000 people out. Do you still feel that momentum today? I mean, we've gone through like a year or two of like, it almost seemed as though the media was attacking young climate activists to the point that some of you retreated and stopped protesting and stopped engaging. Why do you continue?
The level of criticism, both personal attacks, physical attacks, safety attacks.
Physical attacks?
Threats to physical safety, sure, have been, there's this story here about the psychological effects of media and people criticizing young people who want the better for the world to the point that they retreat. There's a story there, but to your point, why do I keep coming back? The project that I'm working on is not a one-hit solution, but I'm back because I'm working with this new idea and innovation. I'm also very, very well aware of the planetary science, and I work with Professor Johan Rockström, Mary Robinson, President Santos, and I get briefings on a regular basis where the science is, and it is scary. We have crossed 7 of the 9 planetary boundaries. The Amazon is just a couple of years away from hitting a tipping point that would turn the Amazon into a savanna. And there's no return from that. And then most importantly, this is cliche and it's been said 100 times, but the climate crisis will indeed affect the poorest among us. And I don't come from a community that has the wealth of Bill Gates. We need advocates for the global majority. That's why I'm here.
How do you and your organization tie into the UN's and COP30's goals to protect the planet from what's to come?
Well, there's a big elephant in the room that is completely being unaddressed, and I would appreciate if we can talk about this. Before the world came to Berlin to negotiate for the climate crisis, the world's highest court released an opinion on why climate change is a human rights issue. And the world's highest court wrote out a couple of things that it is not only encouraging, but it is insisting that the nations comply to. First is a fossil fuel phase out. The International Court of Justice is not just saying we need a fossil fuel phase out, we need to stop investing in all new fossil fuel infrastructure. The International Court of Justice has said that 1.5 degrees is the limit in which that Paris outlines, and it clarifies Paris's obligations, and it says that if countries transgress that 1.5 degree, there can be legal repercussions. And the last thing
Ayisha mentions the advisory opinion issued by the International Court of Justice in July. The case began in 2019 when 27 law students in Vanuatu pushed their government to take climate concerns to the world's highest court.
The Pacific is facing an existential threat from the climate crisis. My country, like many others, is facing a future of disappearing under the waves should global warming go beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. For the last 3 years, I have been working with my colleagues from island nations and with people from all around the world to seek an International Court of Justice advisory opinion on climate change and human rights.
Please be seated.
International human rights law, however, does not obligate states to mitigate anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions, nor does it currently provide for a human right to a healthy environment.
This is really a tough one. I mean, the ICJ ruling, firstly, is only on others, is purely advisory. It may help provide backbone for actual cases that are brought forward. Yeah. That's firstly. Secondly, it's so difficult to actually prove that someone's been affected by, say, a company's emissions? How is that proven, tangibly speaking? And thirdly, if the ICJ's ruling is based on 1.5, the scientists are saying we're heading to 3 by the end of this century. There's so many loopholes in here for a company to get away with continuing emitting.
Well, I think it's incorrect to say it's just an advisory opinion. The UN Climate Summit is just a summit. The Paris Climate Agreement is just a multilateral agreement. But because of this, we are now at a world where we're not in 2 degrees. In 2015, we were headed to a 4-degree world, and today you and I would be sitting in a 2-degree world. That's the first thing. Also, courts only release opinions unless you're in a criminal court. All civil courts release opinions. I think there's a misconception of our understanding of opinion. In legal terms, an opinion is the best available suggestion. Because just like scientists, courts don't give like X verdict or Y verdict. And scientists will give you 99.9% accurate data, but they will never say it's 100% accurate because that is not possible. So I think we need to change the language with which we address court opinions because it kind of it's a disservice to the integrity it holds. Second, the advisory opinion does mention 1.5 as a legal standard, but there can be, what the point of that is, if we enter a world above 1.5 and countries in particular, major carbon countries contribute to entering a world that is above 1.5, there could be legal repercussions. Just because we are headed towards a world of 3 degrees does not mean that the 1.5 degree standard is in the trash. That is the standard. Now you're breaching it.
I do want to ask you to clarify a bit about this ICJ ruling. It says the ruling is not, which is not legally binding, but it's considered highly persuasive.
Yes, but all international court opinions are considered highly persuasive. The international...
But is this a loophole for companies to get away with continued emissions?
Well, sorry, I'm going to go deeper into this, but there are very little ways for people to hold corporations accountable, period. Most of the big carbon majors are in the US. Shell, Exxon, Chevron hold the status of persons in the United States. It is very, very difficult to hold them accountable if they have breached or if they have contributed to human rights violations in Nigeria, in the Congo, so on and so forth. Because the US courts say that in order to hold these companies accountable, the issue must touch and concern the US. That's one thing. In the international framework, it is also very hard to hold corporations accountable. When the ICJ is setting us, actually, it's given us an exponential pathway into a world where we could hold them accountable. Just 6 months ago, it was even more difficult to take Exxon to court. It was even more difficult to take BP to court. It was even more difficult to hold Total accountable. Now there will be, and there already are, a couple of cases in the progress that are using this advisory opinion to take them to court. This did not exist. So it's not a loophole. It's actually, the corporations were very weary of this advisory opinion. I mean, the law is slow. I'll concede that. It's very slow. But it is catching up.
So the future does not look very bright based on the science. What do you think what do you think things are going to look and feel like, say, by the year 2050?
I mean, this COP is a wonderful analogy, if not others have said it or not. Half of it was on fire, another part of it was flooding. I mean, the science is telling us exactly that. In full reality, as both a climate activist, now hopefully soon to be a legal scholar, I don't want to contribute to false hope. But I also come from the movement and a tradition that doesn't give up. I come from an indigenous people who have tried to extinguish us and extinct us many a times, and we're still standing.
May I ask you a deeply personal question? Do you plan on having a family in the future?
I come from a tradition and a people who have said that as long as one child of our nation is alive, we're still alive.
Beautiful.
And for that reason, having a family in a time like this would be an act of defiance. I think many things have tried to not just kill my people, but prevent us from progressing. And so, yeah, I do intend on having a family. What that looks like, I don't know. But I think here's what the thing is about the climate crisis, and it's so obvious. You and I are at risk. Our species is at risk. It's other species and the resilient planet Earth is, I'm sure, will keep living. Some have gone extinct, but the majority of them will continue to thrive. It's our children that are at risk. It's our tomorrow that is at risk. And for some reason, we've become an incredibly suicidal species. I don't understand that. It's almost as if we've thrown in the towel before it's even asking us to give up. And one way we're going to keep throwing in the towel is we're going to say that we don't want to continue. I can see the argument for women in certain communities in the world not to have children. I'm sure. I live in the U.S. I can see arguments for that. But the thing that the billionaires understand, and I guess this is where the misconception is, they will continue procreating and continuing the expansion of the human race. Those without resources, those that look like you and me, will be dissuaded. We've already been dissuaded. There's a lot of misinformation about the fact that we're all overpopulated in certain parts of the world. That is also a very eugenicist argument. There's a lot of misinformation that there are too many black and brown people on planet Earth.
Ayisha points out that when people blame overpopulation for climate change, it often carries harmful racial assumptions. The argument has a long history and has been criticized as colonial logic and for targeting marginalized communities rather than major polluters. Theories about population control have often been intertwined with eugenics, racism, and forced sterilization, policies that disproportionately target people of color and marginalized communities. Its roots go back to the 18th century English economist Thomas Malthus, who warned that population growth would outpace food supply and lead to disaster. His ideas later influenced eugenics, the harmful practice of promoting reproduction among people with desirable traits while restricting or preventing it among those deemed undesirable. Echoes of this thinking still appear in climate debates today, but ecologists are clear focusing on population numbers is misguided. It's not the number of people that drives climate breakdown, it's how people consume, the systems and industries responsible for emissions. And because much of the world's population growth is in the global south, where most are people of color, overpopulation arguments can reinforce racist narratives. Many scholars call this a form of eco-fascism or green colonialism, a way for rich countries to justify population control and to avoid addressing their own outsized role in emissions and environmental destruction. Critics say even when intentions aren't racist, the impacts can deepen long-standing inequalities and shift blame onto those least responsible. Africa, for example, is home to fast-growing populations, but produces only about 2 to 3% of global carbon emissions.
You kind of started off this interview by saying that you did feel, hopeful and you keep fighting. Does your hope have a limit? Do you think there's something in the future that will tell you, okay, this is it, I absolutely give up, there's no hope left?
I do know there's more hurricanes coming. I do know there's more floods coming. I know in my home country of Pakistan, there's heat coming like we've never seen before. I know there's guaranteed deaths of hundreds of millions of people. I know that. But I again, refuse to concede the limit to my hope because people have lived through worse.
That's a good point.
In the U.S., people have lived through worse. Women have lived through worse. My people have lived through worse. I don't want to get too poetic with you right now, but humankind, in essence, and we are stories, we are memories, all of that is at risk We are one of the only species that gets to bear witness to life. We are one of the only species that has an understanding of the temporal elements of time. We are one of the species that gets to pass on our stories. We get to experience love. That is all at risk. That is what we are playing with. It's since the dawn of time, since Christ himself, all of that is at risk. I don't understand why others don't understand it. The wars that we have fought, the empires we have built, the empires that have collapsed, the nation states that we have built, the religious wars we have fought for, the truth, the science, all of that is at risk. How can we be so incredibly naive to throw that into the trash? Human history, entire peoples, entire languages, entire nation states, countries that have existed for 8,000 years, Tonga, the Solomon Islands, the Vanuatu are at risk. If those people, if entire peoples will be wiped off of planet Earth, maybe there will be one son of one tribe and one daughter of one tribe left. For that is all we are. In fact, we don't have anything else to show for ourselves except the histories and the stories and the written words and the technologies. Why are we willing to throw that away? I cannot wrap my mind around this.
I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you.
Likewise.